Hello, welcome to new series. Yes, this is going to be like maybe a series. Like it's most likely going to be a series, but this in this video basically named Eugene Essentials Basics. So in this video, we're going to take a look at your what Eugene is, how Eugene play. It's like extremely basic play pattern and how are you going to do certain things in like certain scenarios. I'm just going to explain what a Eugene Deck is, or it's Eugene archetype. Eugene is archetype is revolved around your Vanguard Eugene. What it does is basically retires your opponent board. You try to board wipe your opponent, then you try to kill them, and then your opponent needs to pay like do resource get need to do need to use extra resources, what I'm trying to say. And then try to beat you up, but you retire again, and then you gain off that retire like soul charging or plus power, or even sometimes drawing like a lot of cards if your opponent has an unprotected board, a full unprotected board. So yeah, and I'm going to just straight up go to the deck list, because most of you here I know that you're going to the deck list. So, but I'm still like in this video basics, I'm going to explain the cards, like the card skills and what do they do. And in like after this, I'm going to like give you a certain cards that you can switch out depending on what you like and what you want. And in later videos, I'm going to explain to you even more advanced Eugene tricks, because Eugene is a one-trick pony, but it can branch out. So you can play Eugene, basic Eugene. You can play multi-attack Eugene, rearguard multi-attack Eugene with Esperidia. You can even like get around Eva and do some certain shenanigans like that. But this is basic Eugene. This is what your typical Eugene deck list looks like without any weird multi-attack stuff that doesn't belong to Eugene. So yeah, I'm just going to straight to the right line. So in this specific list, we have the grade 0 and grade 1 Bavsagra right line, Namoka and Amoka and Anhabra. I don't know the card name. Sorry, I don't. It's like it, and it's also it's a really weird name. But the grade 1 and basically grade 1 and grade 2 right line of Bavsagra. You might be wondering, like, why are we using this? It's because the grade 1 right line, for the right line, grade 1 more specifically for Eugene, probably the worst right line out there. It just is one of the worst skills that I've ever seen. And it's not even funny at this point. So yeah, um, we're playing the grade 0 for the name, and we're playing the grade 1 for the skill. When this unit is placed on the grade 0, you Soul Blast 1, and then you search Prevent, which is Bavsagra Sword, or Swayanba, or the shield for Bavsagra. As you can see, I'm running the shield. It doesn't really matter what you run. If you run sword or shield, no one cares. You're playing Eugene. So you just want this for the discard fodder, because Soul Blast 1 plus 1, it helps a lot more than people think, because it's basically for later. You Soul Blast 1, you ride up. So yeah, we're running grade 0 and grade 1 buff Sagra right line for this specific deck, like the very basic specific, the very basic Eugene deck. So, and then you run grade 2. It's Randor. And then it has two skills. The first skill is when drawn upon by the grade 3, it must be heavy artillery of the storm Eugene, so something like that. So when this unit is right by this specific Eugene, you draw one and you put a card from drop zone to soul. So you basically plus one, or some people like maybe you can say plus two, but it's basically a plus one and you soul touch one. Selective soul touch one you draw. It helps a lot with soul. It draws you a card. It basically refunds you a card that you just spent on writing to Eugene. And yeah, and then you have the second skill, Auto on Vanguard and or Rigard Circle. When this unit attacks, if your opponent has two or less Regards, you counterblast one, and then you soul charge one, and then this unit gains 5k. Basically, this card is your is your right line for soul charging. Basically, plus your card. Like this is basically one of the best right lines effects for you for this deck. Because why? This card is sometimes like this deck sometimes like wins you game by just drawing one, and the soul charge is practically mandatory. I mean, sometimes your opponent damages you for some reason. I don't know who does that, but I once see like once experience someone damaging me on random, and it's like it's a mild inconvenience because with this right line you practically have with the counterblast you have four cards in soul instead of with the Eugene right line which is six cards in soul. If they don't give you the counterblast for the Trandor skill, you basically have three damage. You basically have three soul, while the grade one have like five soul. But it's rare for people to like damage you. Like why would they? It's standard. It's basically extremely heavy. Like if you rush, you're most likely gonna win, especially when you're going first. Except when you're playing Chronojet, that's a different beast. Yeah. Randor is just the best right line for Eugene. Because and to be honest, like maybe if you really want to go to with the grade two buff Sagra right line, but this card with Randor, the Eugene right line, it's just better. And you have Eugene himself. Basically, it has two skills. Act once per turn. You rest two of your regards. You retire one of your opponent's regards, and this unit gains 10k. It's not bad. It's not bad. It pops something and you gain 10k. And yeah, sometimes the rest is like a problem, but a lot of times it really doesn't. It's like, oh, you're just resting two cards. You're just gonna call from the second skill. Um, the seconds and yeah, when we're going to discuss, I'm going to tell you what the second skill does now. So the second skill is act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. If you have retired one of your opponent's regard during this turn, you soul plus five. You check you look at the same amount of cards from your top deck as the amount of open Riga Circle your opponent has. So your opponent has five open Riga Circle, you check top five. If your opponent has three, you check top three. Basic, yeah. This is why like this deck wants to retire a lot, so you can just plus off this, and then from those cards, you either call it and then the rest is put to soul. So once you soul plus five, that how many cards you look at the top deck from Eugene is basically never going to the deck ever again. And yeah, which is like sometimes you get really suck like three triggers, four triggers. I've even seen someone check five triggers. Like, but sometimes you get like five really good cards that you need, or like three different like, really good cards that you need. And like so yeah, it also somewhat refunds you if you don't really want that card. You can just suck it into soul and use it for later, or just use it for other skill. It's like oh, you lose the top five, but a lot of times it helps you win games because it's a plus. You're basically Soul Blast 5 to plus how many cards that you have, how many your opponent Giga Circles that you have. So yeah, this deck really wants you to retire things because of just Eugene's skill of just plusing. And yeah, this is the right line. It's like this is like your typical Eugene right line. And and then the alternative for the grade 0 and grade 1. There's like not really any alternative for the grade 2 unless you really want to run buff grade 2 buff Sagra, which is like I can understand, but with Randall it's just way better because it just gives you more resource. Yes, it's one turn late, but it gets more resource than the grade 2. So yeah, with this grade 0 and grade 1, I highly like if you do like really want to change it, there's only one other option, which is to change grade 0, the grade 1 for Namoka because the starter is like basically A. But I would suggest keeping this to like the grade 0 right line for Basvagra because if you don't have it, let's say you have Bar, your opponent knows that this is never going to be Basagra because why would they? Like they need the starter. So the great one can be exchanged with the great one Basagra right line can be exchanged with the great one Eugene right line. The Eugene great one right line has two skills. Um, when this unit is rolled upon by the great two Randor, you saw just one, which is really bad in terms of skill. Uh, because you're only getting one soul, but you not getting +1 in hand is like it's not great, but sometimes this helps, especially like other decks that I'm going to tell you in like other videos of Eugene Essentials. But it also has the second skill of Auto on Giga Circle. If your opponent's Regard is retired during the main phase, you can counter +1 and retire this unit to choose one of your opponent's Regards and retire it. So if you manage to put this on the top of the deck and you need that extra retire, if this somehow the board is like, it's not bad, but you're like, if this is your only option, then it's one. So yeah, that's the right line. I would just highly suggest to stick with this right line because unless you're going to do like slightly more advanced things. But yeah, this is the basic right line. We're going to grade threes. You have the Shield, Swayanba. We have three Eugenes. We have three of the promo, which is Nafal. And then three Berserkers, which is Eugene's main drawing power. It's a normal order. So I'm just going to straight up go to the Shield. Like I say, you from the right line, you only run this because of the right line. It's only a +1, and you filter one from that. So yeah. And then you have Eugene himself. It's just Persona, right? So this is just for Persona, right? Yeah. Nothing more, nothing else. Because Persona riding in this deck is extremely good. Like in any deck, it's good because plus power and draw one. It's like it's really good. And then you run three Navals. Most people run like I'm just going to explain the skill first. Is auto? No, it's act on Giga Circle. If you have Eugene Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Eugene in this card, so basically any Eugene Vanguard. It doesn't need to be this specific Eugene. It can be any Eugene. So you can bind this unit, and then you choose two cards from the draw zone. You choose two normal units that aren't Sentinel. That are not Sentinel. This is very important. And then you put them in the soul. If you have retired one of your opponent's Regard during this turn, you instead of putting them into soul, you may put them in the top deck in any order. This is your main way to like use you like this is one of your ways to not deck out. Also to use Eugene skill to like get what you want from your top zone, or to just stock up in soul. It's basically one all deck. Most decks run four. I run 3 because running 4 means running a lot of grade 3s, and to be honest, like this is doesn't gain any power. It's just 13k base and it has one skill and is act. So I just run this as a 3 off. It's highly suggested that you run this as a 4 off, but I just don't really want to. I'm a have like this basic deck is like slightly has rush in it. You can rush with this deck basically. So yeah, 3 novel, and then you have 3 Basavas. This is normal the B3, and then if you play this, you choose one of your opponent's vanguards. You choose one of your vanguards. Sorry. You choose one of your vanguards and gain the skill out on Liga Circle. During your main phase, uh, if you have sorry, if you retire your opponent's Riga during the main phase, you draw one. So basically, this is your main drawing power. You play this, you draw one, it goes neutral, and then all other draws is a plus. So yeah, that's the grade threes. You run 10 grade. This deck runs 10 grade threes, 3 persona rights, and the others are like support. But grade threes in the decks are never meant to be frontliners. Your frontliners are grade twos, which is I'm going to like show you now. I run one Travis, four Dustin, four Gibrabrakio or long neck, as most people like to say, and four Meteor Flare. I'm just going to explain Dustin first because it's the easiest to explain one of them all. It has 2 skills. Um, when this unit is placed on Rega Circle, if you have a Vanguard named uh, this specific Eugene, you may put a card from hand to soul, and then you draw one card. You choose one of your opponent's agree to or agree to or greater card, and then you retire it. So yeah, it's just retires your card, it draws your card, gets your soul, like basically washing your hands. Yeah, it's the first skill is like really nice, but you use it for the first skill. But the second skill also really helps, which is auto on Rega Circle. When this unit attacks, cost soul blast one. You choose one of your for each of your opponent's open Rega Circle. This unit gains 2k. So it's gonna be really big, and the best part is this can rush your opponent. So let's say you're going first and then you call this, you're at grade 2, you cannot use the first skill, but the second skill also really helps because this is going to be a 20 base, a 20 attacker. This is a 20k beat stick if you saw touch one, which is like nice. Your opponent, if your opponent doesn't get triggers, it's going to be 15k, but if your opponent gets triggers, it's still going to be 5k, which is really annoying. Usually your opponent like checks a trigger and then. So yeah, this is Dustin, very helpful. And then you have Gibra Q. I'm running this as a 4 off. It has 2 skills. The first skill is act on Giga Circle. If your Vanguard is this specific Eugene, you may Soul Blast one and then rest this unit. If you pay the cost, you choose one of your opponent's guards and retire it. This is one of your main retires. You might be wondering why the cost needs to rest this, and then with the second skill, out on Rega Circle at the beginning of your battle phase, if your opponent has one or less cards, have one or less regards, you stand this unit, and this unit gains 5k until the end of turn. Basically, this is a refund to itself and Eugene's rest skill, the first skill. It gets 5k, and then this is also a rush piece. Your opponent doesn't drop 5k, your opponent drops 10k. If this is still at greed to game, or greed to. So yeah, it's really nice. You can just plop this, unlike Dustin, it's a automatic 15k because your opponent's most likely not going to call anything on the first greed to turn, and like they're not gonna rush you. With Eugene, you can crush your opponent like well with this just 2 cards. And then we have Meteor Flare as a 4 off again. It has 2 skills. The first skill is auto. When this unit is placed on the Rega Circle, Until then of turn, your opponent. Sorry about that. Yeah. Auto condition is placed on Rega circle. Until the end of turn, your opponent's Riga circles loses all of their continuous until ability until the end of turn and cannot gain them. So basically, and takes everything that that has like any continuous abilities. Opponent's regards, they're gone. And then dot. Counterblast one. Choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and then retire it. It's nice. This card solves a lot of Eugene's problem, which is basically resist, but it doesn't really um, solve Eugene's problem of Eva. Like I'm going to explain how to counter Eva in the later video. And yeah, it's just a really nice card counter plus one. Retire one, your opponent loses off their continuous abilities basically. And then you can just start board wiping them. And then you have the second skill, which is continuous on Riga circle. At in your turn, if your opponent's Vanguard is critically greater and has no regards, this unit gains 10k. So basically, um, your opponent's critical greater, no board, this unit gains 10k, which is nice. Uh, Unlike Dustin, this unit gains an automatic 10k, and yeah, usually you want this to be like this or Dustin at the front and Jibra Brachio at the back, because this too has more power. But sometimes if you're rushing and you like want to keep resource, you may put Jibra Brachio on the front, which is I'm not gonna complain. Like I'm not gonna judge. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of people rush, especially with Eugene. It's really easy to rush. And then you have Travis. It has one skill. Uh, Act on Riga Circle once per turn. If you have retired your opponent's regards during this turn, you counterblast one, you saw touch one, you choose one of your opponent's regards, and then you retire it, and then this unit gains 10k. So basically, this is one of your ways to saw charge. You have way better ways. I just run this as a one-off because like I don't really have like anything to put into the deck. It's just a slot that I can put it in. I can put anything in, and I just chose to put Travis's because it's a grade 2, so you can rush. And if your opponent gives 2 counterblast at your grade 2 turn, you can just plop this. You counterblast 2, it's fine. You have like 10k base and a 20k base, you sort one, yada yada yada. It's like it's a way to eat counterblast very early on, because if you're getting rushed, you wanna rush back with this deck. It's like there's no other way to counter them. So yeah, you're running 13 grade 2s. This is a lot of grade 2s, but you use a lot of grade 2s in this deck. This is your main way to get value and to actually make the deck work. And then we have grade 1s. Oh boy, grade 1s. We're running 7. We run 3 also. We run 4 PGs. PG any combination, to be honest, like Elementaria 3 PGs or 4 PGs. Like you gotta keep in mind, it depends on what your meta is. If your meta has more Chronojet, put the normal PG, put the Elementaria. If your meta has like slightly less greed for triple drive units, you put 4 in, because sometimes the no discarding really helps. PG, like you're mandatory, like this is basically mandatory in any deck. And then 3 Oswald, it has one skill. Um, at the end of battle, this unit boosted a Eugene named Vanguard. If your opponent's Vanguard is critical or greater, and they have no regards, you counterblast one discard one, you stand one of your Vanguards, and then the drive and crit of that unit becomes 1. So it doesn't minus drive and crit, it just turns it to 1. So it you lose a drive basically, and the crit, depending on what you get on your drive check, is either did not change or changed to 1. This deck is one of your main ways, like it's a Vanguard multi-attack on a Rega Circle. It's extremely good. The problem is your opponent needs to be pretty or greater, and your opponent has no regards, which is sometimes a problem, but most of the time it's not a problem. Your opponent has like three, sometimes two regards, sometimes four. They rarely ever have five on the board. So yeah, this is like just like a really nice piece to have. It's like three off. You pressure with one more attack. It's just a good double rare. And then we go to the triggers, which is for crit effects, for normal heals. Three draws, draw effects, one Dragon Empire OT, two normal crits, and two front crits. I'm just gonna gloss over the ones that are practically like brain dead. Oh, Dragon Empire OT, extremely busted. For normal heals, the meta right now doesn't really scream multi attack or plus one crit. No, like two more, like a lot of crits with like effects. So I'm running four normal heals. Um, and it's a 15k heal. There's no downside to it. That's why I run this a four of. It's also 5k base, which is nice. Four crit effects. Um, this helps. A lot of people don't know in you like if you know. If you solve last five with Eugene, if you get this, just call it. It's a 4k. It's going to put into soul anyway, and you have a 4k on the board. As a booster, it's like nice. You can just this is your like fuck. I check this. Okay, I'm just gonna call this because it's a brain dead call. And with your like I say, you're mostly playing with grade twos. It becomes 14, 19 something. It goes over 13k, which is like it's really good. A lot of the time it's just like really good to have. So like for crit effects, this is not mandatory by the way. It's like if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But you can just use normal crit effects. You can just use normal crits. And I have this is like the really weird one because I run three draw effects, two normal crit, and two front effects. So front because if you get a front, your front row becomes big. Duh. And it's a 20k shield. It's the only 20k shield right now. That's actually good. Yeah, normal crits. Crits extremely busted. You check a crit, it's a crit. Your opponent becomes like dizzy or something. But it's like it's a crit. For goodness sake, it's a fucking crit. And then you run and the three draw effects. It's a 10k draw effect. It's a 10k draw. 10k shield draw. Draws you a card. Like it's really good. And yeah, this is the trigger. A lot of this is like interchangeable. So you can just run. So if you really want to run 8 crits, 3 draws, it's fine. You can run like rainbow. So you run 4 fronts, like 4 fronts, and 3 draws, it's fine. You run 4 draws, it's fine. Hell, you can even run like 8 crits, 8 crits, like 8 crits, 4 fronts. No, 3 fronts. It's like for like pushing your opponent really, really hard. And if you sack with like 8 crits, 4 fronts, it basically like almost win the game because you're going to have really big board, really nice looking board, not for your opponent, of course. Like, oh, I can play with this. It's like your opponent needs to guard a lot. Yeah, that's the right. That's the deck. I'm just gonna explain to you how Eugene plays in this like current state that Eugene is. I know DBT09 is coming out in Japan. I'm going to get them later. It's just like I don't know what to put. The Eugene stuff in there is like mid at best, or like really bad at worst, unplayable at worst. So yeah, this is your typical, not your typical, but your standard Eugene deck list. This is like your cookie cutter deck list, not for the triggers, but for the for the other cards, for the main units. Yeah, you can change like a lot of this out, but there's like some cards that's practically mandatory. Meteor Flare is practically mandatory. Dustin is practically mandatory. Gibraltar is not, but some people say it's practically mandatory. I don't really like believe that it's mandatory, but it's really nice to have, and it's like a basic retire one. You have your Oswald, which is your Vanguard restamp. It's really nice to have one more Vanguard attack. Makes your opponent like think a lot. And you have your best harvest. This is like not mandatory. It just lets you draw a lot of cards, especially against like decks that you can't even retire stuff. This is basically it. You have Snowfall, which is your soul or your anti-deck out strategy. Yeah, this is basically how like the standard Eugene deck is. Like the cookie cut, no, not cookie cutter, but like your bulk standard deck list. And this sums up the video on the very like deck list, which is just like the basics. Because in this video, I assume you already know how to play Vanguard and how you like, and how some things work and how you play Eugene and how to play Eugene. Yeah, but you need details on what to do and like what's the standard, like your standard cookie cutter deck list looks like. This is it. And yeah, this is the video. This is part one of like I hopefully say many. In like the next video, like maybe fighting against like maybe like alternative deck lists. With Esperaridea, with Overlord. Some people, including me, makes Overlord just to counter some decks in their local meta or like the bigger meta. If like you're sitting here with the current meta, which is Eva, one of them has Eva, and this deck is really weak against Eva, but with Overlord you can overcome that weakness and just play the game like Eugene stuff. And then you have like really wacky things that you can do with Eugene because it's the Soul Blast because of the Soul Blast 5. To be honest, without the Soul Blast 5, Eugene doesn't really do anything. So yeah, that's it. Uh, I'm not gonna waste time anymore. It's already 30 minutes of me blabbering about Eugene decks and like how to like at least play with Eugene. Yeah, this is Ethereal. Standard YouTube stuff like subscribe, yada yada yada. I'll see you later. Goodbye.